In episode 67, titled Automate Evidence Collection Workflows, we replace manual evidence hunts with reliable automation that produces the right artifacts on schedule, in the right format, and linked to the right controls. Manual gathering feels flexible until the third email thread, the fourth missing screenshot, and the fifth time a timestamp cannot be reconciled. Automation changes the economics. It treats evidence as data, not souvenirs, and it captures that data where it lives, with systems, services, and change records, instead of chasing it later through memory. The goal is not novelty, it is repeatability. When a pipeline does the lifting, the monthly package ships on time, assessors receive verifiable inputs, and engineers spend their energy fixing risk rather than recreating proof. Automation is simply disciplined logistics applied to assurance, and once it starts, the quality of your submissions becomes predictably high.
Begin by defining scope deliberately, so automation pulls exactly what matters and nothing that does not. Evidence spans several domains: control states and the parameters that drive them, asset inventories and ownership, logs and event traces, ticket histories for change and incident flow, configuration baselines and drift indicators, and authenticated vulnerability scan outputs with coverage summaries. Write these domains down as first-class inputs and tie each to an authoritative source. Scope also includes the granularity you need, per environment, per system, per component, and the minimum fields that make an artifact useful later, such as who acted, what changed, where it is recorded, and when approval landed. Clear scope prevents pipelines from turning into noisy collectors, and it makes every retrieval defensible because the reason for collecting is documented as part of the design. Integration is where scope meets reality. Connect to cloud provider interfaces through formal APIs. Ingest log and alert streams from the Security Information and Event Management (SIEM) platform, and query the Configuration Management Database (CMDB) or other asset sources for authoritative identifiers. Pull configuration states from repositories and infrastructure as code systems, and harvest change and remediation context from ticketing platforms that reflect day-to-day governance. Favor service accounts with least privilege and read-only access paths, and prefer webhooks or event subscriptions where publishers can push records rather than forcing brittle polling. The aim is to wire pipelines to the systems that already know the truth, so evidence freshness becomes a property of operations, not an extra project layered on top. When integrations align with authority, trust follows naturally. Normalization turns many streams into one language that humans and machines can both follow. Standardize timestamps with declared time zones and a system clock source, and format them consistently across all collectors. Use stable asset identifiers, those carried by the CMDB or inventory source, alongside volatile labels like host names or ephemeral addresses. Capture owner fields that map to accountable teams. Record environment tags that distinguish production from staging, and include version stamps for tools, policies, and configuration baselines. Store the normalized records with the raw originals so you can prove provenance while still enabling fast joins for dashboards and reports. Normalization is not decoration. It is what makes correlation fast, parsing reliable, and reconciliation painless when auditors ask how one artifact connects to the next. Scheduling gives the system a heartbeat. Some collectors run on predictable cadences: monthly authenticated scans aligned with continuous monitoring, weekly configuration snapshots for high-risk tiers, and daily extracts of ticket states and change approvals. Others should be event-driven: triggers on new releases, infrastructure drift, asset discoveries, or detection rules that cross thresholds. Treat these schedules like production calendars with visibility, owners, and success criteria. Capture run logs and outcomes and raise alerts when a scheduled collector fails so a human can intervene before the evidence window closes. A healthy automation program blends cadence with reactivity, ensuring you always have what the authorization letter expects and that you also notice important changes when they actually occur. Secure storage is non-negotiable because evidence is sensitive and must remain trustworthy. Place artifacts in access-controlled repositories that encrypt at rest and in transit, and segregate roles so retrieval is distinct from administration. Record retention rules by artifact class and enforce them with lifecycle policies rather than ad hoc deletion. Attach integrity metadata, cryptographic hashes, signer identity, and generation timestamps to each file and create lineage records that show which collector produced the artifact from which system using which version of code. When an assessor or sponsor asks, you can show that an artifact is complete, untampered, and within the agreed retention window. Security here is not ceremony. It is what turns "we promise" into "we can prove" under pressure. Linkage is where automation pays off in downstream effort. As artifacts land, attach references to the control IDs, organization-defined parameters, systems, and responsible teams they inform. Use the same identifiers that appear in the system security plan and the plan of actions and milestones, so reports, dashboards, and remediation trackers all reference the same objects. Add lightweight rules that route artifacts to owners for review when thresholds are crossed, and tag evidence with the tickets that implement fixes or confirm closure. When linkage is automatic, triage stops guessing, dashboards stop lying, and every narrative line in a report can point to the artifact that backs it up. The package begins to assemble itself because every piece already knows where it belongs. Brittleness is the classic pitfall. Scripts that quietly fail on a schema change, credentials that expire without warning, or network rules that block a collector will silently starve your package. Build resiliency by treating collectors like production services. Monitor each job's success rate, latency, and output volume, alert on anomalies, and expose a health endpoint that operators can check quickly. Write defensive parsers that handle optional fields and unexpected values gracefully, and include contract tests that fail fast when an upstream source changes. Finally, record last good and last attempted run metadata in a place humans reviewed daily. Brittleness is not a character flaw. It is a risk to be engineered away with visibility, tests, and the same operational care you give revenue-bearing systems. A simple, high-leverage improvement is to adopt standard file names, identifiers, and manifest files across every collector. File names that encode system, control reference, date, environment, and version make discovery and audits faster. A manifest in each batch listing, files, hashes, sources, and intended consumers becomes the index that tools and people use to navigate without guessing. When every archive includes its own table of contents and integrity values, recipients can verify completeness in minutes, and automation can cross-check expected versus delivered artifacts. This is not complicated, and it pays off every month because friction disappears from the first minute of review. Approvals and attestations keep rigor in the loop. Route new or changed evidence through a lightweight approval stage where an owner confirms correctness and a second person attests that the artifact satisfies the intended requirement. Capture those attestations as structured data: who approved, when, and under which policy, so you can prove 4eyes review on the exact files that reach submissions. Require this gate for high-impact artifacts, such as control parameter exports, authenticated scan summaries, and exception records. Approvals are not bureaucracy when they are short and specific. They are a documented control against accidental misrepresentation that could otherwise slip into a package unnoticed. Consider a concrete scenario. A new host is discovered by the asset service during a window between scans. The discovery event triggers a pipeline. The collector queries the infrastructure API for configuration, captures tags that identify business owner and environment, retrieves baseline security settings, and requests a targeted authenticated scan. It writes artifacts to the repository with normalized identifiers, creates a manifest with hashes, links the host to relevant controls in the register, and opens a ticket to confirm enrollment and monitoring. If the scan phase authentication, the pipeline records the failure reason, alerts the owner, and retries after a credential fix. Hours later, dashboards show the new asset, its first compliance snapshot, and any exposures with owners already assigned. No one had to remember to collect or to notify. Measurement turns automation from hopeful to proven. Track completeness: the percentage of expected artifacts delivered for each cycle and domain. Track freshness: the median and maximum age of artifacts feeding dashboards and reports relative to their scheduled cadence. Track collection time: how long pipelines take from trigger to stored, approved evidence. Publish these as a small internal dashboard and use them in governance meetings so leadership can see whether the system is keeping promises. When a metric dips, investigate whether an integration changed, a schedule slipped, or a schema drifted, and record the corrective action. Measured automation improves. Unmeasured automation drifts into folklore. A short mini-review keeps teams focused under time pressure. Integrate, normalize, schedule, secure, link, measure. Integrate sources that already know the truth rather than asking humans to retype it. Normalize fields so correlation is automatic. Schedule with both cadence and events so coverage stays high. Secure storage with integrity and lineage so evidence can be trusted. Link artifacts to controls and owners so triage starts ready. Measure completeness and freshness so the system learns. Saying this out loud at stand-ups turns principles into habits, and habits are what make assurance repeatable. In conclusion, automating evidence collection workflows converts assurance from scavenger hunt to supply chain. You define the scope once, connect authoritative sources, normalize and secure what arrives, and link it automatically to the controls and teams that move risk. The result is fewer surprises, faster reporting, and artifacts that withstand scrutiny because provenance is built in. With this foundation described, the next action is practical and confidence building. Prototype one collector. Pick a single high-value stream, such as authenticated scan summaries for production, and build the integration, normalization, storage, linkage, and manifest around it. Ship it, measure it, and expand from there. Momentum begins with one reliable feed. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.